Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone to the School Outreach Roundtable. Thanks for being here. Um, let's see, I think I've met, I'm just looking to see if I've met everybody here. I think so, but in case you don't know me, I'm Emma Sewell with the Materials Management section in DEC, and we are trying out a couple of new accessibility features in this training. We've been getting a bunch of training about how to make our presentations and also written materials more accessible to more people. So we're trying them out and then also, hopefully modeling a couple things that might be useful in your work out in your communities. So one thing is that I'm going to just ask folks when you speak today in the large group to just say your name before you talk, even if you've already introduced yourself. And then I'm also just going to describe myself as we're starting off. I'm a light-skinned woman with a light brown ponytail and glasses, and my background is it's not a real background. It's a picture, but it's a very relaxing beach house room with a bunch of windows and the ocean behind. And then you all are my guinea pigs. This is my first time sharing my PowerPoint through Teams itself, and it supposedly is going to give you the option, if you want, no need to dabble in it, but it's supposedly going to give you the option to move around the slides yourself. And it tells me that there's other ways that you can make it more accessible. Like there's different features you can turn on to make the presentation easier for folks to use. So no need to dabble in that at all, but if you are interested in dabbling in it, it's possible. And if the button that pops up that says sync to presenter view, it will bring you to whatever slide I'm showing, just like a normal presentation. Okay, so we've set the stage. Oh, I guess the last thing to set the stage on that I don't know if we remember to talk about at our last training is that there is a auto captioning option in Teams. If you click the ... on the toolbar for more and go down to language and speech, you can turn on live captioning. So it's automated, but hopefully better than nothing. Okay, great. Now we've set the table. Nice to see you all. We're gonna spend just an hour. I know the calendar invite said an hour and a half, but we're blocked off here just for an hour to do a little bit of a whirlwind tour of school outreach. I'm going to start off with a short presentation just reviewing the school outreach requirements for SWMEs, what's expected for schools, and what DEC has done and is doing and could do, and the resources DEC has that are available for folks to use if you so desire. And then we're going to take a break from listening and have little small group discussions, and then we'll come back together to hear some tips and inspiration from two seasoned SWME outreachers. Solid waste management entity is the SWME. And then we'll have a little time at the end for some Q&A and discussion. And I think some of you definitely know, but some of you might not know that there's a group of folks from the SWMEs who meet quarterly to talk about school outreach and to work, sort of work through school outreach things and learn and problem solve and network. And so this training is taking the place of one of those meetings, but there's more opportunities to get support and to brainstorm and sort of move the school outreach statewide forward at these quarterly meetings. And we'll set the date for the next meeting at the end of this meeting. So please help me remember that. All right, okay, let's dive in. I'm not setting the table. So let's just start off by getting grounded, right? And why do we do school outreach other than like we have to, So why do we do it? First goal is to provide information. We want to make sure the schools at the minimum know what they need to know to be able to manage their materials properly and to improve their systems. At the next level, we want to provide assistance. We also all know that it just takes time and energy and work to make things happen in this world. And so the SWME and the DEC school outreach work is trying to give an infusion of time and energy into school materials management systems so that we can have more systems that function better. And then ultimately, we really want to at least make sure that our schools are all in compliance with Vermont's materials management laws so that they have a recycling system, food scrap system, et cetera. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So those are like sort of the three prongs, but then even bigger picture, the reasons that many of us are here in this field and are really motivated in this field is because all this work is helping take care of the environment and our public health, our climate, our soil. We're building soil with composting, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and trying to just do better on the planet for all the living things, animals, people, future generations. So and then, of course, with schools also, whenever you're doing sort of culture setting work in schools, you're like creating the baseline for all these kids, and this is their normal. So it's really a great opportunity also to help make sure that for this next generation of young folks are having a baseline that is more sustainable management of their materials, or I'd say more sustainable. There's more opportunities to make things better pretty much always. But okay, so there's our motivation. So just as a reminder, anytime you're wondering, like, what exactly am I supposed to be doing, you can always refer back to your SWIP, your solid waste implementation plan. And it's outlined in the SWIP. But this is a big, dense paragraph, so let's break it down briefly. So each year, SWMEs need to reach 10% of their K-12 schools or 2 schools, whichever number is greater. And that's because some SWMEs are one town and some are a whole region. So it's written to address the scale. And so that does include private schools, but it's just your K-12 schools, not preschools, not colleges. Those can be considered like institutions as part of your business and institution outreach. And then the goal is to work with different schools each year so that over the 5 years of the SWIP term, because it's a 5-year plan, you've reached half of your schools. Or if you have fewer than 10 schools, you've reached all of them. And then you can use your judgment to decide which ones would benefit the most from a revisit in those later years of the plan. And then for each school that you're counting towards this minimum requirement, you need to cover all the required topics, provide relevant information to the facilities or administrators and or food service staff. The goal there is to reach an adult in the one or multiple adults in the school who either are managing the systems or overseeing the systems or have influence in the systems of the school, like the hazardous materials that are in the school, the recycling system, the food scrap system. And then as part of that work, you need to have at least one in-person meeting. But if you go and meet in person with the food services director, but the facilities staff is not available that day and they want to talk on the phone next week, that's fine because you've already had your in-person meeting. So it's just at least one. And then it's encouraged but not required for each of these schools to do lessons and projects with students and teachers. So that's not required. And I know that many SWMEs over the years have had really great success with focusing some of their work on working with students and working with teachers, and have found that to be a really useful tool for actually influencing school systems and even accessing the adults who are making the decisions in the school. So, and I think Rhonda and John are going to talk about that a little bit. And I'm just going to do 1 or 2 more slides here, and then I'll take your question, Rhonda. So the required topics are for each school to talk about the materials banned from the trash, the recycling, food scrap diversion, food waste reduction, food donation, hazardous waste, and Vermont's Extended Producer Responsibility Programs, or EPR, which is also called like sort of the average person name of that is like the free special recycling program. So that's the electronics, collection, paint, batteries, fluorescent light bulbs, and mercury thermostat. And then let's see, last but not least, each SWME does an annual SWIP report that includes reporting on school outreach and many other things. But for school outreach, you'll report out the number of schools that you connected with, where you met those that suite of checkboxes, that suite of requirements, and then you'll upload a tracking sheet that needs to list the schools that you contacted and the date you contacted them, and describe the outreach materials provided, the status of recycling and food scrap diversion programs, and whether follow-up is needed. And we have a spreadsheet you're welcome to use for tracking that has columns for each of those things, or you're welcome to use your own. Also, please just make sure that it reports on those specific details that are spelled out. And we're not looking through these spreadsheets to say like who's out of compliance. So if you end up having, if you have a school that's out of compliance where you're ready to bring in some assistance, please send us a note separately. Don't just assume we'll see it in the spreadsheet. That's more for your own notes, so that when you're, 5 years from now, or if you're a smaller entity, 3 years from now saying, who do I go visit? You know who needs more attention. And then for the whether follow-up is needed, my suggestion, if you're making your own spreadsheet, is to just have a column that's titled like, is follow-up needed? And then, or like, what follow-up is needed? And then if it's left blank, we know you're leaving it blank to say there's no follow-up needed. That sometimes is confusing, and then we have to ask you about it. So that will just make your life a little easier. Okay, let's see. Rhonda, did you have a question you want to do now, or do you want to save it for later?
No, I'd like to ask it now.
Yeah.
Preschools. So I've always included preschools with the schools, but you're saying that they should be included with business when the business person is reporting.
Okay. No, you can include those in schools when you're counting your 10. Well, so I think. Let me.
Because I don't know where they count. Do they count towards because I'm not counting them towards schools, but our business person isn't counting them towards businesses.
Yeah, I think you could count those towards your business and institution number, because that's just how the line is drawn. And I'll let Ann chime in there if that's not correct. Yeah, Pam. Pam, did you have a question just about this theme? Okay, maybe not. We'll come back to it. Okay, so what is expected for schools? So I'm sorry, there's a lot of words on this slide. Bear with me. So the basic expectation for schools for food scraps and recycling is that they need to have a system to keep these materials out of the trash. And their system needs to include some staff training, which can include having good signage, for example, and having there just be an expectation that like in our school, we recycle, so it doesn't have to be really complex. And then for food, they need to prioritize the food recovery hierarchy. So that means seeking ways to waste less food when possible, donate quality edible food to feed people, feed animals safely based on Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets guidelines, that's the AAFM. So that, for example, means not feeding pigs food that has come in contact with meat, bones, animal juices, because that can be a pathway for spreading diseases. And then to compost or anaerobically digest the food scraps. And so schools that have a system in place, even if it's not working perfectly, may dispose of a de minimis amount of food waste. And that's part of the universal recycling law. And folks are always welcome to send questions about that to us. And I'm going to ask folks to hold questions on that until the end, but write it down, please, if you have questions about that, so we can bring it to the end. But I know that could be a bit of a conversation. So we'll come back to that when we have time. And then for hazardous waste, we don't expect SWMEs to all be hazardous waste experts. And in DEC, we actually have a separate hazardous waste program. Like, that's not my expertise. So we just need SWMEs to, join us in communicating some sort of core information to schools. And we have a handout and a web page that you can use, either one, to do that. So that includes that schools are hazardous waste generators, so they need to be registered with DEC, and they'll get an EPA site number assigned to them. And then they need to follow state and federal guidelines for how they interact with those materials, maintain a hazardous communication action plan and chemical hygiene plan. And then in general, we just always are encouraging anywhere there's an opportunity to reduce the purchasing and use of hazardous materials, that is always great. So Drew Youngs from the Hazardous Waste Program and Mia Rothline from our materials management section are always happy to talk to schools or to SWMEs more about this theme in general. And I'll share some resources available on this theme in a little bit. So let's see. So yes, you don't have to have this all memorized. We have websites. Okay, so we have a Universal Recycling for Schools webpage, and Shannon's going to put the link in the chat. I know it's a little hard to find things on our website sometimes because there's so much. So we're always happy to send you links directly also. And there's also a Hazardous Waste Management for Schools webpage. And these more, the key information on these websites parallels what's in our handouts. So you have a choice. You can sort of figure out what works best for you. Would you rather do a handout, which maybe you're sharing as a PDF, or maybe you're printing out and giving to somebody, or would you rather send someone to a website? Okay, so that's expectations for schools. So last but not least, what does DEC do and what resources are available? So it has varied over the years, but my coworker Anne, who is here, I believe started the School Outreach Quarterly group, and now that group is like sort of self-led, but we're trying to continue to support it. And then we have done and are going to continue to do outreach to the Principals Association and the Agency of Education. We create and share resources as we're able to, and as you all tell us of needs where you're like, I think this thing would be helpful for me, and I'm sure would be helpful for other people. As we have capacity, we try and just continue to improve and build the resource library, and we always welcome your suggestions and thoughts on that. And then we do special projects as they come up and as we have capacity, like doing a giant bulk purchase of buckets for schools a few years ago when you all communicated that there was a need, and we were able to advocate for it and then make this happen in partnership with many of you. A special project that we're working on right now is that our department received a grant from the EPA, and a sizable chunk of that money is going to go into running a school materials management institute that will recruit teams from schools to learn about materials management and develop materials management action plans and get support on either facilities operations or curriculum, just like depending who comes from the school team, and they'll work with mentors. Anyway, it's in the design phase, and we're hopefully releasing an RFP for that to find a organization to run the institute, in partnership with us. And maybe some of you, if you're interested in being involved in the upcoming years. So that's an example of a special project as an opportunity appeared and there was a need. And that was an idea that I think originally that idea probably came from some SWME staff. So a great idea. Let's see, other ways DEC can help. You're welcome to just use us as a source of influence. I know sometimes some SWMEs have told me it's helpful for them to distinguish how they are different from the state people, to say, oh, I am just your local community outreacher. I am not the state. You don't want to have to talk to them, so you should talk to me. So that's a tool in your toolbox that may be helpful or not. Another way we're available to help is with direct outreach. If you know of noncompliance, or if you suspect noncompliance and the school will not talk to you, or a school just won't even talk to you, so you're not sure what's happening there, you're welcome to please recruit us to join the effort, and we can connect them. And sometimes, because we do have, we are part of the state, like folks will talk to us that are not really responsive in other settings. And then another way we can help is just with brainstorming, especially for those of you that don't have a team that you work with. If you just need another person to think something through or strategize on or chew on ideas, you can talk to us, talk to your regional staff person. My counterparts are Shannon and Alyssa. And then also the quarterly school outreach group is a great setting for that, where you can bring topics to that. And then I just wrote other because I think this is evolving, and as you folks have great ideas, or if we have ideas or we hear of needs, we can try and support school outreach in other ways as well. This isn't like this is all we do. Okay, Okay, now it's really last but not least is a whirlwind tour of some DC handouts, resources that are available. I just want to start by saying that these are all optional to use, and they're also editable. So if you see something that needs to be fixed or that could be made better, or if you want to make your own version that has information for your region and your logo on it, feel free to be in touch and we can share resources in an editable version so that you can modify them. And then we are, as I said, as we have capacity, trying to just in general improve our library of resources. So that's where we welcome your feedback. Okay, so Pam had this great idea, and I finally was able to do it, to make a school outreach packet that's one PDF, easy to print, easy to email, of a lot of the resources that are most relevant for schools. So that packet is now available on our website. If you go to, Shannon's going to put the link in the chat, but also if you go to VT, like Vermont Recycles.com, VTrecycles.com, the way our website works is there's this left navigation bar, a little clunky, but it's useful once you know what it's for. And below the solid waste and recycling part, there's a planning webpage highlighted on the left. And that planning webpage has lots of resources for SWMEs, including at the bottom of the page, there's a bunch of links, and the school outreach packet is there. I'm always happy to email you a link also if you can't find it. So this packet includes a bunch of different materials on different themes, covering all the topics that you'll need to talk to, although we have aspirations to have some more in-depth information about wasting less food is on our project list. But to start, it has a one-pager about school requirements and business, the same basic requirements for managing items banned from the trash. And then there's a handout, that's this top one, it's just a snip of the top. Then there's a handout about managing food scraps. There's the waste not guide, which is a visual version of that one pager. Also a nice poster to just like put in a utility closet. There's the Vermonter's Guide to Recycling, an excellent do and don'ts of recycling handout. Also can make a nice bin poster. Information about food sharing tables, guidance for food donation, a handout with tips about managing trash and food scrap carts in bear country. And we've been told now that this means all of Vermont at this point. That's just like how, there's a lot of bears and they've been learning to associate people with food. So we're really trying to emphasize proactive material management to try and prevent problems before they happen. And some of these tips are really simple things. Like some of them are bigger lifts and some of them are small things that might really make a difference. Also, if any of your schools are having issues with bears, please encourage them also to feel free to reach out to us for assistance or to the Fish and Wildlife Department. They can contact their wardens directly. And then at the end of the packet, there's a hazardous waste management and reduction in schools handout that goes through those different pieces that I outlined in much more in depth, but it's like decently, reasonably approachable. And then this is not in the packet, but last but not least, on our website, we have stickers, designs for stickers and signs. And I know some SWMEs have printed these themselves for use in their outreach. If you are a SWME that does not have the ability to do that, and you have a school that could really use like 10 stickers and 15 signs, for example, feel free to be in touch with us. We might be able to just send some right to the school. If you have a larger need, it also doesn't hurt to ask. I can't make any guarantees, but sometimes we're able to provide these as needed across the state. Okay, that's enough listening to me. Thank you all for your attention. Let's switch over to our breakout. Oh, okay, yeah, maybe we'll take a question or two. That's a good idea. I'm seeing the hand pop up. And then we'll switch over to our breakout group. So let's see, Pam, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did have a question. So just a comment on the packet. I'm wondering if the ANR scorecard could be updated and included with this.
Oh, and added in
for schools.
That's the school recycling school recycling. Yeah, potentially. Let me write it down. I haven't actually looked at it in a really long time. What does it need for updating?
I haven't looked at it either, but it is really a good thing for the to go through to
It's
check and
helpful.
see if they're doing what they should be doing, but it probably does need to be updated.
To be updated. Okay, yeah, let me put it on my list and we'll take a look at it and see. Do other folks use that? Would people want that to be added in? I mean, I can make, if other folks don't want it, I can still make one for you, Pam, that has, that has it on it, even if that's not the one on the
Okay.
website.
It's
Okay.
helpful to give to them. I don't know if they really ever fill it out. But the other question is, what if we can't get into the school? Like, we're having issues. They're not even returning calls this year.
Yeah.
So we're kind of upped our game and just tried to stop talking to the person answering the phone and try to get the principal on the phone.
Yeah.
And just that is challenging, but things we can provide the information electronically. They really don't want us to get in there.
Into the school. Yeah. So I'll just say briefly now that when you have specific cases like that, that's a place where you can reach out to your A&R staff person. So you'll connect with Shannon, I believe, and we can try and help like through our state identity, see if we can bridge that gap and like get them to pay attention. And then we can talk a little bit.
10 schools. 10.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So they're all in that mode of we can't do it. Thanks for the information. We've also been trying this year to get them to make sure that they know they need the EPA ID number and to apply for that.
Yeah.
I'm really clueless about that. We're
Yeah.
trying to do a follow up, but yeah. So,
Okay. This is a great question, Pam. So Anne, will you note that down to save that question for our Q&A? Because I think we can have a bigger discussion. And then also, Pam, it sounds like also probably you and Shannon will sit down and talk strategy and see if we can, try and use some of our influence to open that door. So let's come back to that one. And then let's see, I'm seeing,
So Emma, I just want to let you know we are working on the breakout rooms. I believe Anne actually needs to do that from hers because she's the organizer of the event.
Okay.
And so we're just doing a little technical stuff.
Okay, great. Then I'll take another question. Okay. So Anne's maybe doing breakout rooms. So Shannon, will you help us remember to come back to Pam's question at the end? Okay, beautiful. All right. Let's see, John.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
If it's okay, I'd like to ask a couple questions.
Okay, let's just do one right now because then we're going to have more questions at the end. So pick one now and then write them down because I want to come back to them. Yeah,
that's fine. I understand the risks and the concerns with feeding food scraps to swine, to pigs. Just one point of clarification. If a school or a business is giving their food scraps to a farmer or what have you, or maybe an employee of the school is taking them home and feeding their food scraps to their pigs. And this is assuming that some of these food scraps could be meat or could have been coming in contact with some kind of meat or products. If they're just feeding to pigs for their own consumption, not selling the pig meat commercially, is that allowed?
Let's see, my memory, and I'm just going to pull it up right now. My memory is that it's only allowed if you're feeding your own personal pigs, your own personal food scraps. And we are not actually the enforcers of it, but when we encounter it in our business outreach, we just give an FYI to the Agency of Agriculture so that I'm not sure what happens next. Basically, we pass it off to them, but let me just, I'll pull that up actually, John. Let's see. Anne, are we almost ready for breakout rooms? Will you just give me a thumbs up or something when we're ready? Okay, they're looking not ready yet. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so that's my memory, and I'll look that up during the breakout rooms, John, and just confirm. Yeah, so I think officially it's only allowed when it's your own personal food scraps going to your own personal pig. So this would be like community food scraps going to a personal pig, so it would not be allowed. Okay, let's take a question from Alexandra, and then if we still aren't ready for breakout rooms, we'll come back to John or Pam.
Hi, Sharon Fagard here.
Oh, hi, Sharon.
And I just wanted to mention that in the hazardous waste outreach, does the state material that you've got in that school outreach packet refer people to Michelle Thompson at the Envision program so that they can tap into that resource pretty easily?
That's a good question, Sharon. Thank you. Yes, because you have lots of expertise in this, I'm remembering, right? That was one of your previous hats. Let me just open it up and we can take a look. Let's see. And is that a resource that's going to exist indefinitely, or is that like a resource that's just available this year? Do you know?
No, it's ongoing. It's been around. I think the Envision program was, it's a little over 20 years old. And it's a voluntary program for schools. They will do site visits and help them improve their indoor air quality and reduce the types of reduce the toxicity of the products they're using for cleaning and maintaining their buildings.
Okay, and it's called the Vision program?
Envision, ENVISION.
Okay, it looks like it's not in here. So my suggestion is, would you be willing to just email me just like a sentence or two about it, and I'll pass it along to Mia and just see where we want to put that. And maybe it's, let me see if it's on the website, but maybe just didn't make it onto the email. That would be great to, no, it's not on that either. So yeah, that's an oversight and we should definitely add that, I would imagine. I'll defer to you on that one. I'm not sure if there were thoughts about like trying to steer people to the hazardous waste program or something, but anyway, I'm not really sure, but please send it my way. Emma.stuhl, STUHL at Vermont.gov. Thank you so much.
We're ready for the breakout rooms now.
Okay, so please write down your questions or like draw yourself a note so that you'll remember, or you can put it in the chat. And so we're gonna just have small, pretty quick chats. Please introduce yourself to each other if you don't know each other. And we're asking folks to share either a challenge you're grappling with. So Pam already got our wheels turning on that, or a success that you've had that you think might be helpful for other folks to hear about, because maybe it will provide an example of a strategy that might be useful for them in one of their circumstances. And then we'll come back together to hear from Rhonda and John and have the rest of our Q&A. All right, thank you, Shannon and Anne. Breakout room magic. Okay, 10 seconds. Or you can click join the room at the top of your screen.
Ever. Well, we just got kicked right out of there.
Oh,
Yeah, pulls you right out. Well, that's good. We'll have
There's
lots
some
of more
really good
discussion to
stuff.
have at the end. It's hard to pack it into 1 hour. Okay, well, thank you all for your thoughts. So now we are going to hear, let's start with Rhonda. Mace is the school outreach coordinator at the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Did I get that right, Rhonda? Okay, I just have asked Rhonda and John to share some thoughts with us. It's going to be pretty brief, but both of them have most of their job is focused on school outreach. So we all have a lot to learn from each other, and yeah, they definitely, I'm sure, have a lot to share with us. So take it away, Rhonda. Thank you.
All right. So I just shared a challenge with my breakout group, but I guess my approach is that because I am designated to schools, I have a lot more time to teach the actual kids. So, and I understand that y'all, are doing everything, just one person. So, but I think that allows me a special into schools. I've also, just as a resource, have created several lesson plans that I'm happy to share. You can change it up. It's pretty specific to our district, but to Chittenden County, but definitely happy to share an editable version of those. But I find that's good to share with teachers because it has standards in there, kind of shares, and they can lead it if they want to. Definitely. I've got schools coming in next week, 2 weeks from now, that because it's only me, I'll be giving a compost tour to one group or one class of kids, and the other half of the team will be doing a teacher-led compost activity, but like having that laid out for the teachers, so they're going to lead it, and we're going to cross their fingers they can, whatever, they pick up what I'm putting down. So I do send out an email to schools that I haven't been in touch with for a while, usually at the end of July, beginning of August. Just being like, hey, it's Rhonda. I've sent you this many times before. And laying out what we have to offer, links to our webpage and so on. Sometimes that spurs some interest. Most times, and again, these are schools that I don't work with often or ever. So most of the time it's crickets. Another way that I find getting into schools is good, and getting in good with the food service and the custodial staff, which is really where you're going to get all your information. I found that administrative people don't really know what's going on or don't know where their stuff goes. It's the facilities people. But offering to help at the sort station during lunch. Man, that goes so far. Cleaning off the sort station, wiping tables down, bust out a broom in between lunches. Those custodians, many of them will be eating out of your hands. So I find that's a really good tip. If you have the opportunity to be able to actually be there physically, because then you can just be like after lunch or maybe even during lunch, sit down and kind of in between lunches, go over your list of stuff with the custodial staff. It might not be the lead, but most custodians know where their stuff goes, or just provide that service and then follow up later and be like, hey man, can I come in? And they're probably, I have found a lot more open to you coming in and talking to them because you've lended them a hand. My mama and daddy raised me to always help. Don't be standing around. So that's how I looked at it. But then I was like, oh, this is a cherry on top of the cake or whatever that saying is. We have the advantage too of having tours. So field trips are always great if you have any kind of facility, even a transfer station where you can drop up. That might be something to offer schools to do, like a little tour of the transfer station. Could be like a 30-minute field trip, but to opening their eyeballs to sorting stuff out might open their eyeballs to the greater thing. Will that count technically for your outreach? Probably not, but it might be an ins to that school. I don't know. One of my challenges I was telling my breakout group is that I have a problem with religious independent schools. They just don't respond. I've worked with like 2 of them. One of them I think was just entertaining me because of a senior project, but once she graduated, it was like, huh? Where'd you go? And then an elementary school or K-12 or K-8 school. And I worked with them extensively, but it was driven also by a parental unit, which now has that parental unit moved on. Several of those teachers have left that school, and now I'm at different schools with them because they were like, oh, they reached out to me. But that is a challenge. And so I am like done. I'll say I'm done playing Mrs. Nice, Rhonda. I'm going in guns a-blazing, and I'm just gonna cold call them because I don't typically call them, but I'm gonna cold call them, explain who I am, what I'm looking for, and that that I'm required to report that they're not responding to my requests to the state, and I'm trying to prevent any kind of state bringing the hammer down. So I'm kind of gonna go in a little on the threat side. Still keeping it nice, but because I'm like, they're leaving me no choice at this point. So hopefully, fingers crossed that works. But I'm going to start that in July or August, or maybe actually the end of this school year, probably the middle of June, start calling those schools, which makes me very nervous because I'm just not I'm not a regulatory person. So I'm like practicing my mean voice, or stern voice, I should say. And then one success story, and then I'll shut up. Is this year there's this one school that they've gotten compost and recycle bins from us. But aside from that, like anytime I'm like, hey, let me come in and chat, they just crickets. But I have at their K through 3rd grade school, so they're a 4th and 5th grade school. They're K through 3rd. I've been teaching at that school the kindergartners every single year for like 4 years. So now that school is filled with kindergartners that have had me. And one of the teachers is like, yeah, they won't stop. Like, hey, we're doing this wrong. We need Recycle Rhonda to come in here and fix this. So they came in, and I did an assembly and with them, and it was fun seeing a lot of them growed up anyway. But so working with even just the kindergartners has like that was a success story in that the kids were the ones being like, we need to do a better job. So I say persevere. I know sometimes it is hard. I feel defeated often with the independent schools that will not get back to me. But I'm just not going to give up and just get a little stern, and I'll let you all know how that works out. Could turn on me, but then I'll roll it over to you guys, the state.
Thanks.
All right. And thanks for all of your hard work out there. You guys are, I know sometimes it's frustrating, but doing an excellent job.
Hear, hear. Thanks, Rhonda. What an inspiring story. Yeah, that is so great. I guess that's an example of where, yeah, Rhonda and John were telling me, like, even though you don't have to work with the students, like, it can be really powerful. Yeah. Okay. John, we'll turn it over to you.
Sure. I would say keep in mind all the different avenues you have available to you. If, for instance, I've gone into these can be tough to get time, and when I do get it, it's often a very short amount of time. But teacher meetings, I bring in a packet of materials that I pass out to each teacher. I quickly go through them. And then if you've got 15 or 20 minutes, then you've got the option to talk about programming you provide. You can ask them how like recycling and food scrap separation is going. You've instantly introduced yourself to all the adults in the school, and now you're somewhat of a familiar face. So that's one possibility. All school meetings, if you're comfortable getting up in front of an auditorium full of kids, that's another possibility. I also think cafeteria visits can be very valuable. If you're feeling like it's something you're comfortable with, I ask for a few minutes, like generally speaking, give the kids, talk to the adults in the room who are managing the herd during lunch, and ask them when an appropriate time is that I can talk to the kids for a few minutes. And if it's a big school and they're using a microphone to talk to the kids, grab the microphone and introduce yourself and let them know, they may have met you before. If not, you're here to help them with the recycling and their food scraps. And if there are adults in the room, you'll also get their attention too, any teachers or anybody that might be in a room. And then you can monitor the sorting station as well. So you can be very visible by visiting lunches, doing cafeteria visits, and meet a lot of kids. And you may have some kids that'll come up to you, especially older kids, and say, hey, we've got this issue, or I'm part of this green team. Can you help us? That kind of thing. And the other thing is, I know you guys don't have the time that Rhonda and I do, but the more different ways to get into a school, the more you're becoming a familiar face, someone that people remember and knows that they can reach out to. Let's see. I also have my struggles definitely with independent private schools, reaching out to them. I just think over the years we have not developed some of them are by their nature, they don't lend themselves well to the type of model that we've developed, the programming for public schools. They're very different creatures. And we just haven't over the years developed the same relationship in this program that we've developed with public schools. No excuses. That's just the way it's gone. Oh, and in terms of delivering programs to meet school kids, I think you just need to develop a good, solid program. And if the kids like it and the teachers like it, they're going to ask you to come back. And I've done this before, and I'll offer it again. If somebody, and Rhonda, you might be willing to do the same thing. If somebody's interested to come in and shadow us during a presentation and maybe even help out to get an idea of what we do, what it looks like beside the lesson plan, and see if it's something you want to develop for your own school programming, that's something I'll offer. And in terms of a success story, I think with more emphasis, the state asking us to put more emphasis in the past couple year or two on outreach to custodial facility staff and food services staff. I think the kind of binder of forms that I've developed that I sit down and go through with custodial staff on visits and the information I leave them with, I think that's been really successful. It took me a while. I really sat down and worked on and thought about, what do I want to talk to these folks about? What's this checklist look like? What kind of information am I going to leave them with? It took me a while, but now whenever I meet them, I've got this binder that I hand them, and then we sit down and we go through it, one question, one checklist at a time, to see how they're doing, where they need help in terms of managing their solid waste. So I think for me, that's a success story.
Thanks so much, John. I put in the chat, and I think I said at the beginning, but if I didn't, I'm so sorry. We are recording this, this training. Just want to make sure folks know. Let's see. So I think Anne was going to sign on and facilitate our Q&A. I know we have a bunch of folks who have questions from before. So I think just throw your hands back up if you still have questions, and we'll kick off from there.
There is one question in the chat. I just, and we, touched upon this topic earlier, so I just want to bring this up. And it was a clarifying question about the preschools again. The name is being covered. Kristen from Barton mentioned that, the preschool in her town is located in the supervisory building, like the central office building, and that she for years has been considering it a school and is wondering if that's wrong. And as it is written in the SWPs and the MMP, it is specified as K through 12, public or private. And so again, that outreach does count, but it can count as more of a business and institution outreach, right? I just want to clarify that that's the distinction that we're drawing with K2 through 12 public and private schools.
I'll defer over to Ann. That's how I would read that.
Yeah, it's funny. I just, when that question came up, I emailed Josh really quickly to see if, because I don't remember with the last MMP why it just says K to 12, why we excluded preschool. And I mean, we definitely don't want to discourage you from going to preschools. My guess is that it was because, you know, they generate less waste and we want you to focus on the bigger schools first.
And there's so many preschools too.
Yeah. But that said, we don't want to discourage it. So I mean, I would have to kind of check how we're counting things, but I would go ahead and put it in your school outreach, because it is a school, and I don't know. Maybe we'll have to get back to you with that on a specific policy. It makes sense to me to put it there.
Right, but then it would not count for when you're figuring out what your 10% of schools is. It wouldn't count as one of your 10%, but you could still count it as a successful outreach. Yeah, I think we should just check in with our supervisors and make sure we're not contradicting any decisions and send an email out. Yeah, to provide clarity for that good question.
Pam, you have your hand up?
Did you say Pam or Ham? I never know with the two of us on
Pam.
the call. Okay.
He.
Sometimes I answer for him, so if that happens, that's why. So I just want to talk about kind of like the approach. And I'm thinking, you know, like about pulling Shannon in or going with more of the stick approach. I'm just not sure that that is a good idea. We have a hard enough time getting in there anyway. And so say I call Shannon in and she shows up and she gets in there, they're going to be even less likely to have us want to come in there, because even though we're saying we're not enforcement, we just called enforcement and had them come in. So I don't know the way around that, but that's kind of my thought on that.
So I'll just say one thing for my own personal distinction is in that instance that you mentioned, even if I were to engage with the school and be invited in, it's still outreach in that capacity. It would only become enforcement if there's non-compliance. And that's only after, like, if non-compliance is found, the school would be given a certain amount of time to voluntarily come into compliance. If they do not at that point, then it would go over into an enforcement. And I'm saying this because it's a personal distinction I've also had to make in this new role, that, you know, even though, yes, we do have this level of authority and this word enforcement is on our team and I am not that person. I am still focused on the outreach. And so really it would just be another tool, and recognizing I may get the very same response that you do. Like that's definitely a possibility. But yeah, certainly it's not enforcement yet. That would have to happen after non-compliance is found.
Right, and I see the distinction that you're making. I think that we are using the state as a stick of, like Rhonda said, you know, I've got to report to the state and you're not letting me in there, so you need to let me in there. So even though we're saying we're there for outreach, we are doing the checklist to see if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And if they're not, you know, we're supposed to tell you. So anyway, it's just a comment.
Emma, I'm sorry. I'm not because are we ending at 3? I don't know how you want me to do this.
Oh my goodness, it's 3:03. Yeah, maybe what we should do is say thank you all so much. And for folks who want to stick around to talk more and ask more questions and discuss more, I know I at least can stick around, but you should also feel free to go off to whatever your next thing is. And oh wait, but we need to set a date for can we do that before? Over to Paula. Paula has some potential dates for our next quarterly meeting. So let's just set that, and then we'll have people can leave or stay.
I did not set a specific date, so I'll throw some out and see what folks think. We're looking at September. possibly. So is Thursday still a good day of the week for most people? Perhaps I'm tied up probably the 19th, potentially through the end of the month. So I could do the 12th. How does that work for people?
Yeah. Is there a way that we could do like the whatever second Thursday every quarter, like just to kind of make it easier? I mean, I don't know if that works for people. Just a thought, like,
Yeah, we
it's
had
just-
done that before.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
happened to that, but
All
I
right.
mean,
So
would there be big opposition to that?
I don't remember what it was. I would
Let's
have to
do
go
it.
back, but
Great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. All right. So Thursday, the 12th of September, is 2 o'clock still the best time for everyone, or should we move it to morning? 2 o'clock. Okay. We're getting Pam. Okay. Thumbs up. All right. Wonderful. So I will in a few weeks, send a call for agenda items, and also just get folks to get it on their calendar if they haven't already, so they don't forget. Wonderful. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paula.
Thank you.
And thank you all for folks who are sliding away. We'll see you soon. And then and are you able to stay, or do you want me to take back over?
actually, if you don't mind taking back over, I'm
Yeah.
supposed to have.
You have to run
Okay.
too. Okay, yeah.
Great to see all of you.
Okay, thanks, Ann.
See you
Pam, I just
later.
had a question. It sounds like you are having some good conversations with some of your schools, but the in-person piece is like where you're getting really stuck. Have you been able, is Pam gone? Okay, never mind. And that train of thought. Yes, over to Rhonda.
I have a question about the HASWIS, like, so Jose and I have had this discussion. Where are we supposed to refer our schools to? To whom should we refer our schools to, for help writing a HASCOM plan, or even, a chemical hygiene plan?
Hi, right here, the Envision program, Michelle Thompson. She works under the Department of Health.
She's going to be able to handle all schools in Vermont.
There are documents online they can use as models. Everything that you would need
Right.
to deal with in that realm is part of the Vermont Department of Health's Envision program.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how we don't have this in there already. I'm so glad to hear you say that. Okay, so you're going to
Okay.
send me an email and we'll get that in the handout. And we'll update the website and we'll update the handout.
Right.
Yeah, John, you've been working on this, right?
Yeah, I think chemical hygiene programs might be more the purview of Project WorkSafe and Sean
Maybe
Barth.
VisBit? What about VisBit too, for model policies and plans?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know Hazen Union, the facilities person there. I've been working with him and Sean Barth to produce a template for Vermont schools to use for HASCOM programs. I think that schools are pretty much something the schools just need to sit down and do. They're not necessarily going to get a lot of support because there's so many schools out there that need to do the plans. Sean just can't spread himself that thin. So it's really on them once they have a suitable template, I think, to get it done. One thing I've been doing with Sean, given the realities of him not being able to visit all the schools I work with that could use a hand, is when I do the sit down with custodial facility staff, when I work with a larger school, like a middle high school, and if they need a chemical hygiene plan, that's who I'm connecting with Sean. I'm being selective about who I connect with him. So he can go in and do the Project WorkSafe stuff beyond just a HASCOM plan, program plan, and a chemical hygiene plan, but he can also potentially help them with that.
One of the things I have my hand raised, and it's to a previous topic about trying to get into schools. What I found was a pretty effective messaging is like, I know you guys are really busy, especially if I was working with custodial staff, because maintenance staff, it's always understaffed. But in my messages, I want to make sure you have the information you need and that you can do the things you need to do and make it as painless and easy as possible. So I'm here to offer you resources and information. And we'll find a way to make it work. And you can ask any questions. And one of the things that I think working for a nonprofit that I had is that, like, when I would provide a customized report for what chemicals they were using, how they were using them, it wasn't about disposal. So what I could say is that, like, I will give you a customized report. It's confidential. So I will get your permission before I would share it with anybody. And fortunately, you know, it wasn't where I was going to find anything that was going to be something that needed to be reported to the state. But I think if you can offer them a sense of safety and just like a really, like, I really want to help you, I want to make it as painless, and like I could say, it's usually cost neutral to make these changes. And here's how.
Thank you. Corey, did you have something to say? Fast.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by this new, is this stuff about household hazardous waste with the schools, is this new for this SWIP year, or does it involve 2023? Because I didn't do any of that with the schools. Like their plan and all that, I didn't even know about it.
Yeah, it's not new, but it's got, on the DEC side, it's gotten more organized in recent years, which I think actually is going to be helpful for everyone, because now there's like a handout and a website, and it's not just like provide information. So, but yes, you're not alone in seeing that new piece. So yeah, let's see. So I think I have to look back at how the SWIP is written. I think the focus before has been on, you know, making sure schools know that they have hazardous materials, and they know about the EPR programs, and they know about the, oh yeah, Rhonda.
I was gonna say, maybe put it on that spreadsheet.
Like, oh yeah, I think it is on.
Is there it on there?
Oh, maybe just the EPR programs are on there. Yeah, so I guess the answer to your question, Corey, is some of it might be new, might be coming up new. It wasn't supposed to be new, but folks here have been getting more organized so that it's all in one place, and like the most important information is getting highlighted. So it's not just on you, but let me check that spreadsheet, Rhonda. Yeah, because I know the EPR programs are on there, but.
Because I worked on like just kind of developing a checklist of my own, which I had shared in the past, but I'm happy to share that again with the group. And then that's when Jose went and went up that with his binder, which actually is super awesome. So thank you, John, for that. But it is great to have that binder, and then just to have like sections and knowing exactly what you need to cover in each of those sections. So I find that super useful.
Yeah, Corey, just looking back, it's on the spreadsheet if you're using our template. And it just was very vague before. I think it was just like how to manage hazardous waste properly. But
yeah, I mean,
not really like specific enough. So there has been this effort to be more specific and to make resources that you all and we all can distribute to schools to get them like the key points.
I think what threw me off is the plan that we're supposed to be in their number, because they're hazardous waste sites. There's a whole nother level that of course I discuss household hazardous waste with schools, and they know the programs that we have, but that whole like initial piece, which is like a chemical plan and a number, all of that is like, what?
It's new.
Why is this something that we're doing? Kind of, it just seems a little weird, a little too official, and a little out of our box. I'm just gonna put that up there.
So I guess what I would say to that is that the expectation is not for you to be the DEC hazardous waste program. It's just to say you are like a regulated hazardous waste entity. So here's the information you need to know for that. It's just really like more of the FYI. It's not on you to say like, you need to have the hazardous waste identification number. And I think part of why DEC has been able to get more organized, which has been years in the works, is that a couple years ago, they were able to hire a person for their program that's focused more on the outreach side of things rather than just like going and doing inspections. And so which is really great because people, you're right, you're finding schools that don't even know that they need to be doing this. Like the outreach is really needed. So that's why they, have put these resources together.
I'm wondering about something just because the silo effect seems to be strong. The silo effect is strong. I think that it would be a really great idea to have Michelle Thompson from the Envision program do a short presentation to the hazardous waste or recycling coordinators in a meeting so that everybody knows about it, because that program's been around for 20 plus years and they've only managed to work with about they haven't even hit 50% of the schools because they're like the best kept secret in Vermont. And people just don't know and are not utilizing the program. Yeah.
That sounds great. Yeah. Do you have a connection? Would you be able to
Michelle
see if they could come?
Yep. I got a connection, and I see that you put the Envision program link into the chat, so people have access to that. But should I email you and her and introduce each other and just be like, hey, this is something that I think would be really helpful?
Well, would you want to do it at the recycling coordinators meeting or at the quarterly school meeting?
What makes the most sense, do you think? John, you're familiar with the Envision program. What do you think?
I think either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's space. So there's space in the agenda for either one, I think. Gabriella, right, from CSWG is organizing the next recycling coordinators meeting. So
yeah.
Yes, you could send me her info and I could connect, or we could connect her with Paula to pick a time. Yeah, either way, feel free to just check in with her on the timing, or I can do that, whatever suits you.
What if I'll do it with you just because my brain is like.
Sure.
Okay,
great. Thank you. That's a great idea.
I would vote to have it at the school thing.
Yeah.
Personally.
Great. That makes sense.
The meeting.
Okay. So you're going to send me her email. Okay. Thank you. Oh yeah, let's see. Corey, did you have another question, or is your hand up from before?
Yeah, I thought you could unraise it if you clicked it again, but yeah, so that's why it's up twice now. That's okay.
Okay, all good. Yeah, over to John.
I just wanted to respond to Corey's, what she was saying about the two types of plans. My understanding is any school is supposed to have a HAZCOM program in place. And this is one of the things that's come out of the visits I've done with school facilities staff so far, is that nobody has one, or at least not one that's up to date, or somebody knows where it is, that kind of thing. My intent is not to sit down and write them with them. I'm just trying to get them templates and support that they need. And as far as the chemical hygiene plan is concerned, my understanding is that kicks in primarily when you're on the high school level and you've got a chem lab. Not all schools need a chemical hygiene plan. It's more when you've got like your chemistry lab and your wood shop and things like that, where there's more chemicals involved that need to be managed. But my understanding is they're legally required. And it's just something that's come out. One thing I've been able to identify and then work to get them the templates and the support they need. But as far as I can tell, they certainly can they can reach out to Sean Barth with questions, but it's pretty much on them to just sit down and slog through it and fill it out.
And I think like one of my concerns with that is that like they're not going to do that. Well, not all of them. I'm not saying all people, but if they don't have the help or the support to do it, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they feel confident enough. I actually have not been asking schools if they have a HAZCOM plan because I didn't know that was my responsibility. Or finding out or letting them know that they needed a whatever EAP PA number. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah. And I will just reiterate again, it's not like on you to make sure that they have
Right.
and to make sure they follow through. It's just
But I didn't even know I was
the
supposed to show them they
FYI. They're like,
needed
you're
it.
supposed to do this. Did you know? Here's who to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just when I sat down and like was figuring out what to include with this binder, that's one thing that I put into it and that I've included. That's all. That's how it came about. And I've emphasized it more, finding out that nobody has one that's up to date.
Right. Which is why I love your binder. So thanks again.
John, did you have other questions from before?
I just had the one point that I'm a little confused about. I'm looking back at our SWIP and the part that says school outreach, and it says to ensure all K-12 public and private school children, faculty, and staff, blah, blah, blah. It just seems like if I was to read that, that tells me that I'm supposed to do whatever I can to reach all parties, including the kids. That language says to me, it's compelling me to try and reach the kids whenever I can, in addition to the adults. And I feel like what has happened in the past year or so, where the state is saying, oh, by the way, the classroom programming doesn't count towards meeting your SWIP. I feel like that's like almost like our SWIPs have been amended informally, with the states putting more emphasis on what we do with school facilities, custodial staff, and food services staff. I've just been a little troubled by that. I think it's great that you did that, because I had to sit down and really think about, oh, I'm not focused on this in the way the state necessarily wants me to be. How can I do this? And now I'm finding it's proving to be very productive, very worthwhile. It's just that, yeah, like I said, it just like the way the language in my SWIP reads, it seems like this is an amendment to it saying, oh, by the way, all that effort you put into reaching the kids, it doesn't count towards meeting your SWIP requirements, despite the fact that there's language in your SWIP that, in my opinion, compels me to do so.
Yeah, I think so. Two thoughts. So one is that I did talk to my team about that phrasing, and I think it's like the intent and the impact were like disconnected. Like they were really thinking about that minimum requirement, that like what is the line that needs to be crossed to be fulfilling the most minimum requirement of the SWIPs. And then so because the intent of speaking about that was not like coming, that's not the impact of what they said with do not count. The language that's in the new MMP draft, I think, is so much better, is that it's encouraged but not required. So you're right, it is encouraged, and it is really one of the goals is to reach students when possible. It's just not where that line of like what's the minimum to be done was drawn. And then I think, yeah, you're making a good point. Like every district's or every SWME SWIP is also tailored to for many of them are tailored to your specific district. We're saying this is what I'm going to do in the next 5 years. So again, that's where when they were speaking about that at that training a couple years ago or last year, whenever that was, they were really focused on that minimum line, not on like, what does your SWIP say that you are going to do at Central Vermont? So yeah, you're right. You're working towards what your SWIP says you're going to do, because that's the plan that your district put together and agreed to. So that's where that disconnect was.
Okay.
Right, I gotta scram Beazle, guys, but have a good night. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Nice to see you all. Thank you for your perseverance, for your work. It like is making things happen out there. So we appreciate you. All right, bye.
Bye.